It's a rare treat to have a few days here in St. John's and taking the opportunity to chat with 3 different generations of folks who have collected and shared songs from around Newfoundland and Labrador. My name is Mark Manning, and I play with the band Rum Ragged. For over a decade now, we have been collecting songs and tunes from around Newfoundland and Labrador that have been passed from person to person for generations. Now we're visiting some of the communities where we learn the music and some of the singers and players who help keep it alive. There's so much more to hear. Today we're in St. John's, the heart of so much musical life in Newfoundland and Labrador. It's where traditions from all over the island come together and carry on. As a singer, songwriter, and tradition bearer, Pamela Morgan has been a key part of guiding the music of this place into the future for generations to come.
I'm Pamela Morgan and I'm from Grand Falls, Newfoundland. I didn't grow up with traditional music, but my mother was a piano teacher, and I sang in various choirs. So you have she's like the Swallow type things and the better known ones. But in high school I had a teacher who was a very staunch Newfoundland nationalist. And he kind of was very adamant about Newfoundland culture. That was kind of at the beginning of the Cultural Revolution in Newfoundland. And he came from a place in the southwest coast that had been resettled. And he was very angry about that. I guess influenced by that, I started to research Newfoundland music because that was my strength and passion. As my mother was a piano teacher, so we had music ever since I can remember. And I found Peacock's books in the local library. So I was looking through those and, kind of fascinated by what I found. And that's where it began.
The Peacock collection is something that we're familiar with for sure, and a great collection of Newfoundland and Labrador music. Could you explain it more for somebody who wouldn't know what the Peacock collection is?
Kenneth Peacock was a folklorist from Ottawa who came to Newfoundland in the 50s and 60s and went everywhere and found the singers and recorded them when he could. But as I mentioned, some places didn't have electricity for his recording machine. And he made this fabulous collection. And in fact, apart from finding songs when I was a youngster, a high school student, we also used that as a guide to where the singers, where the rich places were for singers. Like we noticed, for example, that there was a large contingent of songs coming from Plate Cove and Kings Cove in the Buena Vista Peninsula. So we went there. And, so you'd find the places where that was rich in oral tradition by looking at the Peacock's collection. 3 volumes, ton of stuff, beautiful, yeah.
So how did you take that fascination with those books and how did you go about turning that into your career? Like what made you move to town and start playing those songs?
Well, I was also involved in theatre, and so in and keeping with this Newfoundland nationalist thing that this particular teacher had, we wrote a play about the Beothuk. And it was entered in the drama festival as a non-competitive entry because he didn't believe in competition in the arts and all these things. I mean, he was just kind of like a radical guy.
Oh, he did you.
Anyway, so the play was a huge success. I wrote and sang a song in it. And it was invited to play at the Dominion Drama Festival, which was held in St. John's that year. And we as high school students went out and did our show in the lobby. And Noel came and saw it and introduced himself, Noel Dinn from Figgy Duff. And so he introduced himself, and that was great. I said hi and all that kind of stuff, and I just didn't think anything of it. And then that summer I joined the Newfoundland Travelling Theatre, and we did 69 one-night stands all around Newfoundland, everywhere, everywhere in a school bus. And when I came back from that, I came to St. John's, and Noel found me again, and he convinced me to come down for a rehearsal, and he also had the Peacock books, of course, so we had some songs that we knew of in common, and it kind of grew from there. We were on parallel paths, really, and I was really fascinated by the way they were treating the songs. And Noel was an incredible composer, and because I had the classical background, I couldn't believe what I was hearing, like the stuff that he was a self-taught pianist, and he had this old upright in the hall of his house because it couldn't fit through the door to get in the living room, and it had water damage, so it was all out of tune. But he would be there, like, you know, and his hands were really clumsy because he had no training, no dexterity, no nothing, but he knew exactly what he wanted to play and what he wanted to hear. And he would stay there until he found it. And I was totally fascinated because I'd never heard anything like it.
Well, like, you listen to those records even today, it's a sound you don't hear. It's still a unique sound. And I guess people don't realize that, you know, you're getting these tunes, just the melody from a book and the lyrics, and you have to imagine all the chord progressions and every little bit of the arrangement. So, you know, haven't worked on so similar things ourselves. We appreciate, you know, how amazing the sound is in those records.
One of the most, I guess, influential and in-depth works of anybody in Newfoundland and Labrador history, I would say, is yourself. The way you've gone into outport communities, rural communities, spoken to people who are singers and players, and spent time with them. What are some of your most important memories, we'll say, or most significant memories of that time?
Well, first of all, I consider myself really privileged to have had the opportunity to do that because there aren't that many of them left these days. Mm-hmm. And when I was starting in the early 70s, there were a lot more. I don't consider myself a collector. I'm a learner, a student. And I never, ever used a tape recorder. I tried it once because we were on Fogo Island and I had a friend, Philip Foley, who was in Peacock's collection, but at the time Peacock went up there was no electricity, so he wasn't recorded. And I thought it was my duty to record him. And I tried, and he got so nervous and started to shake, and he couldn't sing. I just turned it off. Yeah. So, so I can't. And what I would do, we'd go to parties and hear people sing and stuff like that, but I had several very special friends, and I go back to them over and over again. And what you did then was like an exchange, because, like, you know, if you would sing some songs of a night, like, you know, and then if you go back the next day, they'd say, oh, I remember another verse of that song, or oh, that song you sang for me yesterday reminded me of this song. So, like, it kind of works like that, where you make friends with people, and you exchange songs and you exchange experiences, and you get to know a bit more about the life and all that kind of stuff. So I had a good few of those special friends that I learned a lot of songs from. I don't need the recording of it. I still have it in my mind, my head.
Just looking through the liner notes of the first Feed Off record, I think it might be the first record I've ever seen that gave everyone credit, all the old singers. And like I was looking through it this morning, like Mose Harris and like Joe Campbell's mentioned down there for a few accordion tunes there, and it's just, you know, it really kind of got me thinking when I was learning. I was like, okay, so this music, you need to go out and just find it from the source.
Chris Andrews and Patrick Moran, two well-known names in our traditional music scene. Of course, as members of the iconic Newfoundland band Shanneyganock, but also for their decades of work in performing and producing the songs and tunes that keep this music alive.
Patrick Joseph Moran, born June 7, 1975.
And Chris Andrews, I'm not giving that much info.
If you could say where you're from as well.
Pooch Cove.
And I'm from Logie Bay.
So you both met in
high school.
In high school, right?
Yep.
So what would have, were you playing music when you met up and had met?
I was just starting, yeah.
Sort of. You know.
Even sort of is a good word for it, yeah. I'm still trying.
We were in a class together. It was instrumental performance was the name of the class.
Yes.
They kind of cobbled together some reason. I get all the yahoos together that were kind of into music, keep them out of troubles. But myself and you and our good friend of ours, John Rowe, Jason Whalen, of course, like there was a bunch of us. And
Arthur O'Brien.
Arthur was there, yes, and there was a raggle-taggle crew.
Yeah.
But kind of out of that, we formed a band. I forget what we were called. Blarney?
Was that the first name?
Yeah, that was Mr. Coffee put that name on it.
From there, ye eventually made a record that was called No Place Like Home.
Yeah.
That was collecting tunes from your areas.
Yeah.
People that you grew up around.
You know, for me, like, and you probably find it too, when you were playing, I know, in the bars and stuff downtown, like, you were inundated with, if you weren't from certain places, like the Southern Shore or Stephenville or someplace, they kind of, or St. John's, you weren't in the clique, you weren't in the crew, like, right. So I think for me, it always was in the back of my mind, hey, there's songs from where I grew up too. I know for a fact there is, you know, whether it be, and when I say our area, that's everywhere from Logie Bay, Balleen, the Booch Cove, all down this, I guess you'd call it the Northeast Avalon. And myself and Chris were producing a couple of records, or these compilation records, and the opportunity was there to kind of, you know, they had a bit of success, these Our Songs compilations. They were kind of like a homebrew type of job. And
which we did then too.
Yeah, we did them too. And the opportunity was there. It's like, you know, what's the chance of doing a record? So we collected all these songs, and I think one day it started. We went down to Madonna Wilkinson's house. Madonna's like the queen of flat rock, and knows everything that goes on musically in that whole area. And went down, sat around the kitchen table, and she sang, you know, your Gallus Cove Bite and all this kind of stuff. I know my Uncle Bob came up, was Coppertop Torbay. That's where I got that. You went up just up over the hill here to
Jim Cadigan's.
Cadigan's and through Ed Cadigan had a couple of original material. So we just wanted to kind of show that, hey, there are, you know, there's music down this way too. And I think it did shine light on this place. And, you know, Gallus Cove Bite, the song, which is the strangest song in the world. I know after we recorded, a lady from down my way said, where did you get that, you know, Gallus Cove Bite? Yeah, that's a Torbay song. I said, yes. Where did you get that version to? That's not the way that goes at all. It's like, oh, yes, I'm sorry, I should have consulted.
Well, everybody had their own ways back then too, right? You know, if you didn't know all the words, sure, you made it up.
Yeah, that's actually come up same thing. Like, you know, the town over, or the town that the song was about. You get there and it's like not really the one. That's folk music. Yeah,
it's a local story. So if someone doesn't agree with someone's memory of the story, they might change the verse too.
Yeah.
You may be like, well, this is how I think it happened, and sing a different verse altogether.
When you were looking up this stuff, it wasn't just surface stuff or easy or what current bands were doing. You were actually digging in, finding unique.
Because it's easy to find 2 or 3, but now you got to make a record of it.
Yeah.
And you know, to find 10, you need to find 15, because stuff gets. But the beauty about it, I know we put it out. And it was more of a local record. It might, you know, I don't know if anybody past Logie Bay bought the record. Maybe you fools bought it. But, you know, but people were coming up and saying, well, my uncle got a song, or my grandmother had a song about this event that happened. Like you probably, you know, if you really wanted to go at it, you probably could have done it all again. And that's probably universal to any area.
The Salt Beef Junkies are a new traditional group made up of 3 young musicians who are making quite a name for themselves. We sat down with them to learn more about where their love for traditional music comes from.
I'm Ty Sims, I'm from Paradise. I'm Luke Mercer, I'm from Paradise also.
I'm Alex Mercer, I'm from Paradise also.
Just going to kind of ask you guys how you got into music, and if you had any music in your families.
Yeah, my great-grandfather on my father's side. So that would be my father's grandfather. Before he died, he left his accordion to my grandfather, and then my grandfather gave it to my father, and then my father gave it to me. So
that was passed down a few generations.
Yeah.
So did you hear any kind of music like that growing up?
Yeah, it was always played. Like, Mother would always have the Irish Newfoundland show on Saturdays.
What was it about the accordion that you enjoyed?
Well, for any 5-year-old's buttons, you likes to press buttons, right?
Yeah.
So that was one thing. I also really liked the sound on it too.
Yeah, I was saying the same thing in another interview, how like when you're a kid, it's just a really colourful, loud, easy to get a sound out of it kind of thing. Yeah. And Alex, how about yourself? You're playing the boron.
Well, I like just percussion in general, but when you're mad, you know, you can take it out on something, right?
You don't have to worry about beating it off.
Yeah.
So Ty, what about yourself? What kind of started you into Newfoundland and Labrador music?
My family comes from a lot of Newfoundland music. My grandfather was in a band around the bay in Galtus, where my family's from.
Oh, okay.
And my uncle was actually the accordion player in Anchors Away. Up in Rocky Harbour. So I grew up listening to that music, and then I took lessons from Craig Young when I was
7 or 8, and then I stopped 9 years later. So that's what Craig taught me to play, and I kind of got into that and just grew to what I listen to now.
What would be some of the like the first bands or acts and stuff in Newfoundland and Labrador music that you can remember listening to?
First of all, Rum Ragged.
Yeah,
that's one of them. Yeah. I'd say Shanny Gannock. They're another one that we always used to listen to. Yeah.
But what would have started the band idea? When did you start the band?
Well, I mean, your two sisters were in St. Pat's Dancers. That's how me and him met.
Okay.
And we started jamming out at the practices for the dancers, and we were like, oh, you know, this is deadly. So we were like, might as well start our own little thing, get that on the go.
Yeah.
That was about 5 years ago.
And then Mr. Alex came along after that.
Yeah.
And then we had our first gig down O'Reilly's, opening up for the Nationalist Men.
Nice. I know when we started out playing, and I think some of our first gigs were opening for Nationalist Men or Shannigannock or different things like that, playing at O'Reilly's and down around George Street. Growing up, and I mean still growing up, you're listening to all different kinds of music. What made you want to play Newfoundland and Labrador music?
Well, for me personally, I wanted to keep it going because, like, so far, I think we're the only ones that are young that are doing, like, Irish Newfoundland kind of stuff. And the ones that are the closest in age to us now are Kitchen Party.
Yeah, too.
So that's why I, like, kept to the Irish Newfoundland, is because there's nobody really keeping it alive, right?
Right. And it's important to you to do
Oh,
that.
yeah.
You pick some traditional tunes in Newfoundland and Labrador. How do you go about finding those ones? Do you listen to all albums? Do you go to the archives for stuff? Like,
Well, I mean, it depends. Like, you could be just sitting down at a session somewhere and you hear a tune, you're like, oh my God, that's some nice tune.
yeah.
And then, like, that's how a lot of the tunes I learned was through that.
When we were young, when we were like 14 and 12, we used to go down to the Aaron's pub sessions. We went down almost every week, and then we would listen to the tunes and stuff like that and learn them, and then we'd play them. And then I guess whatever songs have stuck with us for 5 years, we decided we were going to record.
Yeah.
And what ones we really, really liked.
If you don't get sick of them in 5 years,
Yeah.
right,
Exactly.
keep it going.
Yeah.
Should we do a tune all together or what?